Falcons Nation, I think it's time we expose some of these dudes. And I kept the receipts.
First quarter touchdowns for the Texans. Watch and throws. And so there it is. Will Fuller. Watson hands it off near the Hyde. He's in for a Texans touchdown. First down and 20 following the penalty is Watson throws and it's Fuller again. Watson down at 6.
What up, Falcons Nation, Rise Up Nation? It's your boy, Jazzy Jeff. Real talk, no gimmicks. Bring you that real Falcons talk for real Falcons fans. And obviously, we lost the game to the Texans. We got just slaughtered. I kind of want to stray away from that game. And I want to go to the root of the problem, historically, of why we struggle defensively, where the problems are, and what is happening underneath the Quinn era that is causing these problems. So there's a couple topics I wanted to touch in on, and I will start with the Falcons not putting premiums on drafting cornerbacks and defensive tackles higher in the drafts. Now, obviously, Desmond Trufant, for years to come, he's been our heralded cornerback since 2013. And his entire career, he only had 11 interceptions. Now, I want to compare that to Richard Sherman, who Dan Quinn had for 2 years in Seattle when they won the Super Bowl. Richard Sherman's in the 2 years Dan Quinn had Richard Sherman on his defense, Richard Sherman had 12 interceptions. So he had more interceptions in 2 years than Trufant had in his entire career with the Falcons, including this year. That goes to show you that we don't have the best players in the draft. We don't have the best corners. And for us to think that we can just keep rolling out Desmond Trufant as our number one corner and that's going to be good enough to compete in this league, we're just fooling ourselves to think that we have the horses. Another thing I want to say is that Desmond Trufant is the only corner we've ever taken in the first round since the 2000s. Isaiah Oliver was obviously second round, and I think Isaiah Oliver, clearly the more I see him, we reached on Isaiah Oliver. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. We're not going to get every pick right. Some players are going to end up being reaches. And I think Isaiah Oliver coming out of college was a reach. And you can see on tape, he is lanky and rangy. And yes, he can catch up the balls in the air to deflect them. But when it comes to press coverage, off the line, all you got to do is run a slant, a deep cross, a shallow cross, an in cut, and you can completely burn Isaiah Oliver. And his play recognition is still very lacking. He gets lost in the shuffle and he follows things that don't need to be followed. If he just trusts the rest of the defense and plays his assignment, he would be a lot better. But as we know, we chased away Robert Alford because, granted, he was playing like trash, so we wanted to get rid of him. But I felt like we didn't have a contingency plan. We just turned to Isaiah Oliver and said, okay, kid, you're starting, without him proving that he was good enough to start. Yeah, he had a couple of fill-in spots here, there, the year before, but nothing to warrant starting opposite of Desmond Trufant, where he's going against good guys. I mean, Hopkins and Fuller were putting on a clinic against our secondary. And Isaiah Oliver was a huge part of why we were getting burnt on Sunday. Now, let me pause here for a second to bring this up. I do not understand Falcons fans who get all over Isaiah Oliver, who is in his second year, first time starting, and he's young as hell. Get all over him. But you give Desmond Trufant a pass. This guy's making tons of money. First round pick. Been here since 2013. And he continues to do what he does. Desmond Trufant, this is what he does. He will give you a couple good games where you think, oh my God, he's back to form. He's great. He's amazing. And then he'll play 6 games straight garbage, getting burnt like rotisserie chicken. Do you know that Desmond Trufant only made the Pro Bowl 1 time in his entire career? That is not good. Compared to the other top cornerbacks in the league, I don't know why we herald Desmond Trufant as some amazing stud. He's not. On other teams, he would be average at best. So that's just one thing I want to point out. I don't know what this is in our Falcons Nation, that it's almost blasphemous to criticize Desmond Trufant. Why? The guy, when I see him, he's not playing well. I showed you on film what he does. He runs away from tackles. He doesn't look back at the ball. His tackling is poor. He tries to cheat on plays and he gets burnt. And sometimes the effort is he just completely does not play with effort at times. And so I don't know what it is, but he's not that guy that Falcons fans think he is. And I think it's time for us to open our eyes and just be honest with ourselves. He's not as good as we think he is. And I just hate to see that we wait for a Jordan Miller, Sheffield, but we don't ever take number 1 corners anymore. We don't just try to do it. We had Jalen Collins. I believe he was 2nd round, and obviously he had the drug issues. Who else did we take? I mean, we're better with safeties. We did strike out with what's his name? Southward, Denard Southward, I believe his name was, and he got in trouble with suspensions and stuff. So we gotta put a bigger premium on the defense as a whole, but especially cornerbacks and defensive tackles. Dan Quinn is talking about preaching fast and we need to be bigger and physical, but we never bring in any physical players. We never bring in the big defensive tackles. Grady Jarrett's out there by himself doing the best he can, and he's a monster. But man, I would love to have someone next to Grady Jarrett to help this man. Maybe we can get a damn pass rush. Which brings me to my next point. Defensive tackles. Since I want to go, I did this since the start of Dan Quinn's era, but I want to start around like 2010, so 9 years back. The Falcons have only drafted 2 interior defensive tackles in the top 5 rounds. That is absolutely unacceptable to me. One of them being Rashid Hageman, who didn't pan out well and had behavioral issues. And the other is Grady Jarrett, who's doing great, but he's by himself. And we got him in the 5th round. Compare that to other teams who stack up on the defensive tackles, and we wonder why they're so good. The Jacksonvilles, the Denver Broncos, when they got to the Super Bowl, the Seattle Seahawks, teams like that. The Rams getting Sue and Aaron Donald. Why don't we ever do that? It's like the pressure starts from collapsing the pocket, which makes everything around the defense easier to defend. So without that interior pass rush, we are not ever going to exceed. I don't care what scheme Dan Quinn runs. We got to stop bringing in bargain bin players, cheaper players off of free agency, and think that they're going to compete at the caliber of starting defensive tackles in this league. Tyler Davidson is a nice little player, okay? Alan Bailey's playing decent. Jack Crawford, he's a decent fill-in. Dejanson Knott was okay. Now he's trying to make the team. But I'm just sick of thinking that we have these little Band-Aids to patch up our defense and think that that's going to hold over the entire season. That's going to be a starting caliber defense for like the Super Bowl. It's just not. It's not working anymore. So it doesn't matter what plays Dan Quinn calls. It doesn't matter what scheme Dan Quinn schemes up. It's the players. They're not executing. Do you know that the last time the Falcons took an interior defensive tackle in the first round, who it was? Y'all remember Pereira Jerry in 2009? Yeah, did he fail? But after that, it's like we just gave up taking a risk on a defensive tackle high in the draft. And I don't understand that. Back in the days when we were, I believe it was 2010, 11, 12, 13, we had great defensive players. And we drafted a lot of defensive players early. And the guys were bigger back then. And for some reason, I feel like they almost played better defense than we do now. Well, I know they play better defense than we do now. But compared to, say, 2017, when we actually had a great defense, that was it, that one time. Other than that, we've been bad. And it's because we're too small and we're getting pushed around. We don't have the players to execute Dan Quinn's scheme. I'm sorry. Which brings me to my third point. And this is where I can blame Dan Quinn, because Dan Quinn puts us in positions to fail. And why do I say that? Because Dan Quinn thought he could bring the Seattle style to Atlanta. He even said he wanted to do that. The problem was he didn't bring the Seattle Seahawks talent over to the Atlanta Falcons defense. Dan Quinn was inherited amazing players. Now, granted, a lot of them were diamonds in the rough. So I'm going to go through the list. Richard Sherman, 5th round. Cam Chancellor, 5th round. KJ Wright, 4th round. Malcolm Smith, 7th round. Brandon Browner, undrafted. Bobby Wagner, 2nd round. And then they have Earl Thomas was, I believe, 1st round. Now, we all saw that video of Deshaun Watson breaking down our defense and he calling us basic, and it was easy to pick us apart because our defense looked basic. But you know what? Seattle ran that same exact basic defense. They won a fucking Super Bowl. They got to another Super Bowl. The difference was Dan Quinn had superior diamonds in the rough, Pro Bowl, All-Pro defensive players. We don't have that. So to expect us to run the same exact defense with way lower caliber players, it's not going to happen. Richard Sherman is in his prime is way better than Desmond Trufant. Cam Chancellor in his prime, I love Keanu, is better than Keanu Neal, and he didn't get hurt as much as Keanu Neal. And that's becoming a problem. Bobby Wagner is clearly an amazing middle linebacker, and he's bigger than Deion Jones. I love Deion Jones. He's amazing. Deion Jones is great. Skill level, I can say they're almost the same, but Bobby Wagner's bigger, stronger. The KJ Wrights of the world, the Malcolm Smiths of the world, those guys are better than Devondre Campbell. So Dan Quinn has this thing where he thinks he can pluck diamonds in the rough and turn them into all superstars. And yes, sometimes we strike lightning in the bottle, i.e. Deion Jones, Keanu Neal, Vic Beasley for his first year, Grady Jarrett out the 5th round. But that doesn't mean they're all going to do that. So you shouldn't be starting guys who aren't ready, who can't handle playing in the NFL, starting right away at that caliber defense. We are not the CLC. We don't have the personnel. And that'll continue to be a problem. It's not about Dan Quinn in that area. It's about the people he thought he can pick to play the same defense. That's where he made his mistake. But past that, you can't blame Dan Quinn for not having the horses to do well. Which brings me to my next point. Dan Quinn starting players who aren't ready. Now, everybody is not, like I said before, everybody is not going to be Deion Jones, Keanu Neal, Vic Beasley his first year, Grady Jarrett. So we were starting, Dan Quinn loves to start rookies, number one. And obviously sometimes that pays off. But it's not always going to pay off. But Dan Quinn gambles way too much starting guys who aren't ready. Isaiah Oliver was not ready. He's clearly not ready. Dan Quinn started him. Obviously because Robert Alford we got rid of. But that doesn't mean that Isaiah Oliver should have automatically won the job. I mean, hell, Kendall Sheffield should have at least got an attempt to try to start over Isaiah Oliver. They just handed him the job. Who else? Duke Riley. Duke Riley started right away. Why? They thought they were going to try to get another LSU linebacker that was going to be the same caliber of Deion Jones, and we swung and missed on that. He's not. He's not as good as Deion Jones, and obviously we got rid of him. He couldn't even play snaps. He couldn't even make the team, so we got rid of him. Who else? Wes Schweitzer. You know when we got Wes Schweitzer, he started right away. And this is how you know we made a mistake. Because the next year, Wes Schweitzer got demoted. What does that tell you? We're starting guys who are not ready. Wes Schweitzer was a 6th rounder. For some reason, Dan Quinn thought this guy was going to be amazing. Now, obviously, other players we struck out on. Sean Harlow. Thought Dan Quinn said this guy was going to be good. He was going to be a starting force. Sean Harlow never saw the field ever. And I think one of the ways we can fix our team, first of all, it starts with the fans. Falcons fans, let's just be honest when we swing and miss. Let's be honest when we miss on a draft pick. Let's be honest when guys are playing bad. That does not mean you are a negative person. It means you are objective. And last time I checked, objective people love their team just as much as other people. We can be positive when positive things happen, but we should not be afraid to call it negativity that is happening on our team. That's not our problem. That's not our fault. We're not being negative for calling out bad play. So until we fix those things, those are the core problems I think the Falcons have. It's not the scheme and it's not the defense. Because clearly we switched the defense and we're still having the same exact problems. It's the personnel. So, in my opinion, I think we should invest in starting first-round caliber cornerbacks, defensive tackles. The front end is going to help the back end. And we need to stop being cheap on free agent players, on backups, starting guys who aren't ready, and we need to get rid of guys who are just names. Devontae Freeman is just a name. Desmond Trufant is starting to become one of those guys. I'm not saying get rid of him without a contingency plan, because that's stupid. But we should start looking for top-notch cornerbacks. I'm sorry, Desmond Trufant is not cutting it. I gave him enough years to evaluate what he does, and looking at his numbers, comparing him to his colleagues amongst the league, he's not as good as the other guys. He's just not. So, Falcons Nation, you tell me, oh, Jazzy Jeff, am I right on the money, or you think I'm dead wrong and I'm being negative again? Let me know in the comment section below. And please, if you like my video, subscribe, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. And as always, Falcons Nation, we rise up. Check out for my Arizona Cardinals preview coming up this week. And damn, hopefully we get another win, because we need one. We're dying out here. Lost season continues. Let's rise up.